What? Look at this kid blink. From hideout, through the map, into the boss, like a speed demon. Oh my god. Report.
shall enact your fate.
Hey there, and welcome back to another one of my Path of Exile 2 guides. Today we're going to be looking at my basically auto bomber build, reminiscent of 01 Path of Exile. I unfortunately did not press record on my microphone when I was first recording this, and so I have to voice over because I already gave back some of the items that I was borrowing for the guides. There we go. I hope you enjoyed the intro, and I hope you enjoy this guide. This build is really designed for solo play, and it is like by far the fastest Sekhemas build that you can run this league. The damage is still reasonable. We still have decent life and ES. and we're playing this on Blood Mage. The downsides are that this is terrible for group quant because there's no way a rarity bot is ever going to keep up. The damage is not as high as other builds. Like, there's no way you're matching up to a life stacker build in terms of damage. But we also don't rely on Tech Rod, so we don't care if we have the minus life recovery. The other thing is the energy shield is not super high either. So, the tech. We are boosting up our blink levels. This is giving us cooldown reduction on blink, so not super well known, but every 2 levels of blink gives us 0.1 seconds of cooldown recovery, or I mean reduced cooldown of the base blink. So we are really pushing up the blink levels for ourselves, and going with a lot of cast speed to keep up with this cooldown, this lower cooldown. And the nice part is that Blink interacts with Spellslinger. So yes, Blink is improving our Spellslinger. It is gaining energy for us with the Spellslinger, so that makes the Dueling Wand basically a requirement for this build. If you want to cast while jumping around. But yeah, so here I am showing the +3 level of all Blink skills. When I was first crafting this build, and like I mentioned, we need plus levels for Blink. As I was first crafting this build, this Jewel was around 8 Divines. So I picked this. The one I'm showing was picked up for 8 Divines. Now, I finished last night's stream. They were like 200 Divines. I wake up this morning to pings on my server saying I glitched. What the fuck? They are a mirror now. And I check, and the cheapest one was a mirror. There's a few more posted for hundreds of Divines now. But yeah. So here I'm showing the spot that I would put Tech Rods in. So that's where you would put the Tech Rods if you want to put it. I use it in Sekhemas, but not for mapping. So as you can see, this is part of the reason is that I cast with Spellslinger. It takes life because I'm using blood magic. So this blood magic is going to take life, and Tech Rods, especially in Sekhemas, is nice for just passively recovering this life while I'm blinking around and doing other stuff because I have to really focus on my pathing and other things. But overall, not really required. The Tech Rods is really important because I don't use the instant leech gloves when I am doing Sekhemas. I use rare gloves with more cast speed and gain arcane surge on critical hit. So yeah, this build was possible to do on maybe a 100 to 200 div budget previously and still get really high levels of blink, but just the +3 Prism of Belief blink is very expensive now. So this went from a potentially having a budget to just ridiculous in terms of costs, but I figured I would post it anyway. I personally am using a 2.34 tempo, and I will show later in the video what to do if you don't have a 2.34 tempo. So I was borrowing a 1.98 for this recording to show how to get your cooldown lower and what you can do with the tree and things like that. So yes, we are using a wand. We are using the Dueling Wand. I had an exceptional level 20 base, 2 socket, and I had the double gain as on it. This was used for Trinity purposes. I'm also using Trample Toe, a Focus, and Choir of the Storm. But yeah. So one of the big gates is that a lot of people focus just on the cooldown of Blink, but cast speed is by far the bigger gate that you can deal with. It is extremely difficult to start breaking into that 0.2 second and lower. I've got so much cast speed on all my gear, and right now what you're seeing right now is my cast speed. So you saw the cooldown was below 0.2. My cast speed was still around 0.23. I have overcapped cast speed on my focus from Sanctify. I have perfect rolled T1 on my wand. And I have I have a 114% Darkness Enthroned. I've got triple cast speed on my Aziri's Acuity. I have a lot of cast speed in the build. And you still see I'm at over 0.2. So, like I said, in Sekhemas, when we're breaking into that sub that sub 0.2, it takes a lot of investment to get to that point, which is why I generally don't recommend that you run the Sekhemas build unless you want to compete in speedrunning, in which case, go for it. I'd love to see more people competing in Sekhemas and breaking into that sub 6 minute. We are so close. We're at 6:14. So, yeah. Here I'm showing some of the skill gems, and the reason that we are using gain as cold, especially gain as cold, is quite nice, but otherwise there's some other, you can do some other tech as well, because we're using embitter. And the goal is that we're freezing, and the freeze is going to cause Siphon Elements to leave a Frost Infusion, which then boosts Spark in turn. So you're using Spark with Embitter, freezes everything, you get infusions, and then now Spark is stronger. In terms of mapping, if you're using Choir, it's not as required. Spark damage is not as necessary. It is still nice to have, because it always helps if the Spark lands and kills the enemy right away, and you're not relying just on the Lightning Bolt. If the Spark kills stuff, great. But the Siphon Elements is there to give us that freeze infusion for this. If we get fire damage, let's say we get gain as fire, what can happen is that if you use Siphon Elements and you ignite, you can get fire infusion, and then your cast on Crit Comet is going to start proccing. We do use a lot of spirit in this build, so I am using an ATD with gain spirit, gain damage. I'm using an Alpha Howl for that same purpose. I did test with an ES helmet, and I'll probably show you the ES in a sec, but I did test with an ES helmet, and while the energy shield was good, we were able to push to over over 3k energy shield. I found that losing Trinity suffered a lot on the damage. So with the Embitter support, the Spark is giving us Cold on Trinity, and then Lightning Bolt on Choir is giving us the Lightning Trinity, so we're able to somewhat upkeep both. Rings are going to use gain as. Rings are going to use gain damage. I have Cold and Lightning on both. Then Res and Cast Speed. So like I said, Cast Speed is a big gate for this build, so you need Cast Speed wherever you can get it. I was showing there my resistances, like I still haven't optimized my mapping purposes, but my resistances aren't very strong. But yeah, with Alpha Howl, we're using Blasphemy, and Blasphemy is part of our defensive layer because it slows all the enemies down. With all the plus spell levels that we have, Blasphemy is pretty potent. And there you can see my 3000 energy shield. So it does make a big difference, because Temporalis has like very, very little energy shield. And that's usually the body armor is usually the main source of energy shield in our builds. So yeah. Right now, our main source of energy shield is actually the Focus. It has more energy shield than our Temporalis. So getting a high ES Focus with spell percent, plus levels, cast speed, and crit chance is very important, because I found that just having more spirit with Alpha Howl gives us more damage with Trinity, and just clearing out mobs faster just helps with survivability in general. So I opted to go back to Alpha Howl despite testing a lot with the ES helmet. As I don't know if you noticed it, it was like a 525 ES helmet with 30 Spirit Corrupt. But overall, I moved back away from it. So, yeah. I do have, for Sekhemas, I do use a rare amulet. And here I'm talking about what's happening with Blink. So I personally use a script to move space to scroll wheel. What happens is that if you don't do that, then Blink will stutter you. So like that. So if you hold Blink space for more than one frame, you will go into this sprint animation, this stagger, like whatever animation. It's really stupid. So I have a script that one blocks space. And what that means is that if you press space, it'll do it for one frame and let go immediately. And you have to remember that GGG's rules are one input for one action. So you can't do auto blinking or things like that. It has to be one input for one action. So scroll wheel, one scroll. They don't like if you have just one of those unlocked scroll wheels. And even then, even despite me not having that, if I were to just spam scroll wheel, it would kick me out. So you'll see that especially when I'm showing the mapping stuff, I will pause every now and again to make sure that I'm not putting too many inputs into the game and getting booted out. And if you ever watch the streamer Darmy, he's also running a different variation of a tempo build, and he gets booted out a lot because he's just spamming that space bar, and it is getting him booted out. That's it. So yeah. On the priorities, I am showing here the wand. You do need, this is basically all required except the gain as that can be varied. Because we're going a hybrid build where we're dealing a lot of cold and lightning interchangeably depending on what we're doing, I did opt to have just pure spell percent. We're not going for a lightning focus. And because Blink is a spell but not a lightning spell, +5 to lightning spells is useless for us. We definitely need to have that +4 to all spell skills. On the wand. Crit chance, the value of crit chance on a wand is a lot better than the crit damage roll on the wand. So even in this, what you're seeing, I'm not fully capped on crit. I'm running about 98% from this in this video. And that's despite having very high crit chance on both the wand and the focus. So when you're talking about the value of points in the tree, let's just take jewels for example. You run about it's 20% crit damage versus 15% crit chance on a jewel. On a wand, you're talking about 38%, I believe, or 39% crit damage versus 73% crit chance. So that trade-off, you get so much more value for the crit chance roll on the jewel on the wand, and then using jewels with, let's say, crit damage bonus instead. Just balancing that out as much, trying to hit as close to 100 crit chance while still having very good crit damage bonus. And the same goes for the focus as well. Focus rolls T1 to 59% crit damage bonus, crit chance, and the crit damage bonus is in the 30s. I think 38 on the focus. So same thing with the focus. Crit damage is preferred. We will have a wand for mirror service. So there is a wand, exceptional base, 2-socket, level 20 spell slinger, almost identical to mine, not corrupted. So if you are looking to make this build and are on the high end, the wand is going to be available for mirror service. Let me know on Discord or in-game if you see me online, if you do want to mirror that. So I do have a 2.34 tempo. 2.34 tempo affords you the ability to skip a lot of the cooldown reduction points because, like I mentioned, with levels, the cooldown of Blink goes down, and then tempo is a flat cooldown recovery as well. So, yeah. In that case, we are able to get the blink cooldown to very low, despite not really having that much cooldown recovery in the tree. As you see, I'm not using the cooldown recovery on the helmet or the focus at this point, and we are still able to keep our cooldown below our cast time. And yeah, so you will have to manage that, and I'll show you how to set up the tree in a little bit. But the 2.3 tempos are very expensive, so that is a consideration as well. Because of this build, I started seeing the price of those 2.3 tempos rising, and they were about 600 to 800 divines earlier in the league, and then now they're over a mirror for a 2.3 tempo. So yeah. Here I'm showing the Sekhemas, what I am using for Sekhemas. So the gloves, high ES, the ES doesn't really matter. But the crit damage bonus, 100% increased effective socketed items, and the arcane surge on crit hit, and we pair that with the tech rods. We get a lot more cast speed with the rare gloves because of that 100% increased effective socketed items, and that's the reason that I use that. And it does have to pair with the tech rods so that the arcane surge can give me life regeneration back, which is what we spec with the Metamorphosis, which is why it's here. And I moused over it earlier, the Heart of the Well has instant leech on it. So normally I run double gain with double crit chance or crit damage bonus. But for Sekhemas, I am using one Heart of the Well with instant leech. So here just showing, this is the Metamorphosis, and we pick up Touch the Arcane. We take Storm Charge, we can save that 1 point, Sanguimatic, and we take Shredding Force. So we get life regen instead of mana regen from Arcane Surge, increased effective Arcane Surge, and crit chance and crit damage for spells using this Metamorphosis. But keep in mind, it does take a jewel slot. So, trade-offs, and credit to Sten for showing me this tech. I don't know if he was the one that came up with it, but he showed me quite a few days ago before I started hearing about the Arcane Surge from anybody else. So, there is that. And here we're talking about Ancient Reserve. So Ancient Reserve is a notable that you can get on your tech rod, on your Undying Hates, and it gives you +1 cooldown use if you have at least 100 tribute. This allows your blink to effectively have 2 uses. And so you rotate them, and it becomes effectively halved cooldown. And a lot of people were asking me about this, like, Glitch, did you test this? Yes, I did test it. The big gate here is that it takes a lot of tribute. So you need 100 tribute, and unless you have a very, very, very good cluster with like a 20% increased tribute node, plus then I generally would not recommend it. What you could do as like a very, very optimal, if you had this tech rods, and I don't even know if it exists, but if you had Ancient Reserve plus Kingslayer is effectively similar to Giant Slayer on a Undying Hate. If you have enough tribute, it just does a ton more damage to rares and uniques. If you had, let's say, ES% on smalls, increased tribute on attribute nodes, and then Kingslayer plus Ancient Reserve on a tech rods, maybe it's actually worth it to take Ancient Reserve, especially if you don't have that over 2-second tempo. So this can be one way to bring the cooldown much, much lower on your blink, but you do have to invest generally around 15 points to do this. So it starts getting a bit rough if you want to use Ancient Reserve, and that's where I'm saying if you had ES% on the small nodes, on the small passive nodes, you could skip speccing into ES% and then invest in the Undying Hate with those points. So there is that option as well, and then it would afford you the ability to also use tech rods and rare gloves. Then you are susceptible to those life regeneration mods on maps, but you could basically skip the Aziri's Acuity and use rare gloves for more cast speed, and use the Ancient Reserve for effectively improved cooldown recovery. So there is that as an option with Ancient Reserve, but I personally don't run it, and I don't really recommend it. So that is a consideration as well. Now, so here I'm showing all the jewels. There's a lot of unique jewels in the tree. We have the Prism of Belief, which is very expensive now. Megalos. I'll drop the link to my Megalos in the on the Discord. It will be pinned with the guide. Obviously, Heart of the Well. We have a From Nothing, which is the Walker of the Wilds against the Darkness. So this lets us spec a bunch of points in the ATD range without having to spec to them. So it saves a lot of pathing nodes here. And I'll show this later. If you're doing the budget version without an over 2 tempo, you will have to change the From Nothing. But this is one option. So you can see that I'm on my set 2, I have 0 spirit left over, and I have increased reservation efficiency, despite having 4 nodes within the ATD range, and a 130 alpha. You can also spec in the Fabled Stag for a 5th point, and Chakra of Life is for 3 points. If you're using Tech Rods, is really nice as well for that life recovery rate, which works with Tech Rods, and getting that extra spirit within the ATD. So those are some options as well. It's always a very nice From Nothing combo with the ATD. But again, it's another unique jewel, and it wasn't that expensive, luckily. I don't know what the price is now, but when I was doing the setup, it wasn't super expensive. It was like a few divs for that Walker of the Wilds From Nothing. So, plus levels matter. Level 38 and 40 are the breakpoints for minus cooldown. So again, I said minus 0.1 seconds per 2 levels, and it's on the evens that you get that cooldown reduction. So a rare amulet could make it a lot easier to reach level 40, especially if you don't have the Prism of Belief. Technically, you can get up to 43 levels, 21 as a base, and then 22 plus levels throughout different means. You have +4 from the Focus, +4 from the Amulet. You have +3 from Prism of Belief. You have the Utrids for +3, Dialas for +1. You have the Wand for +7. And I believe that's it. Hopefully I counted everything. And yeah, so Amulet versus a Choir, that's 3 levels. So again, if you're using a rare amulet, you can still hit level 40 without a Prism of Belief. But again, that it hurts for mapping, but again, you have to make concessions here and there depending on how much you want to invest in the build. I'm using Adalui's on Spellslinger for increased damage, like I said earlier. If Spellslinger Spark can just kill the enemy outright, great. It bounces around, kills everything, and then everything that's not dying will generally die to Lightning Bolt afterwards. But I did also test with, like, the whole point of the rare amulet was going with just having Spark deal enough damage to kill everything by itself. And it worked really well for low to medium end maps, but then as you get to that higher Delirium, and then if you get maps with Ailment Threshold, you're not generating those cold infusions as much anymore, and then Spark damage falls off, and then it just becomes way more difficult. When you are able to get those cold infusions, then it's not a problem. It's not a problem anymore. So, yeah, there are those considerations as well. So, yeah, we are building up Spark with Spellslinger using Blink. I do have a manual Spark as well because when I do Sekhemas runs, I actually changed the Spellslinger to Comet so that I can blink around, cast my Comet on a rare as I'm passing by it, especially for Chalice or Ritual rooms. Just blink through and do that. Blasphemy is one of our defensive layers. The Uhtred's on Trinity is useless. I forgot I swapped those, which is why I was still in there. And the Uhtred's on Trinity. Actually, I just realized I could get more levels on Trinity if I just didn't put the Fire Mastery on it. Silly of me. There you go. One little optimization I just realized. And yeah, our bossing setup is we do Frost Wall into Frost Bomb. Frost Bomb will give us exposure. The Frost Wall will explode, deal a bunch of crit damage, and generate a lot of energy for cast on crit. Comets will come down, you put more Frost Walls down as comets are coming down, and that's basically the loop. In mapping, I put the cast on crit on set 2 so that I can fit in Arctic Armor. And here you can see that I have no spirit left over, and both my cast on crit and blasphemy are 23% qualled from corrupts, and that gives reservation efficiency. So that's where you know, if you don't have a 130 Alpha Howl, you might have to spec in one extra point within that ATD to get, like, right here, the Fabled Stag. I think I was going to show it. There it is. To get more spirit and make it more lenient on how much spirit you need on the Alpha Howl, as well as the qual that you need. So I had to corrupt for overqual and get that reservation efficiency to fit this all in. But it fits in very nicely, to say the least. So yeah, we have our Siphon. Arctic Armor. This is a spot where I'm still on the fence about. You could go Convalescence. Convalescence is very strong because we are blinking around. And stuff like Ignited Ground, we're not really stopping long enough for Ignite Magnitude, or the Flammability Magnitude, I should say, to lower itself. And just mobs throwing projectiles out or landing into a shrine that has lightning bolts and you just get struck by lightning, or the ice bolt. So yeah, there's things like that where Arctic Armor is really good so that you blink, and if a mob hits you as you're finishing your blink animation, then, you know, they'll hit you. Arctic Armor procs should hopefully kill them, and then they die, or they freeze and get knocked back, etc. So yeah, Arctic Armor is still very good, but you could try specking into Convalescence, because Convalescence is a nice way to just insta refill your energy shield when you see it runs out or is low, because our energy shield recharge is very poor. So here is with the 1.98 tempo that I was borrowing, and we are down to a 0.43 cooldown, while before we were at like 0.14. So here I'm going to show how I swap up my tree and all the supports and everything to get that cooldown lower with an uncorrupted tempo. So the closer to 2 seconds, the better for this purpose, obviously. And I think by the end, we're able to get around. I was able on my 1.97 to get to a 0.23 cooldown. And there I accidentally misclicked and didn't actually unspec the third point for that frost tree. So yeah, we take Temporal Mastery. And then here is where there's a lot of extra management. So we are going to be using the From Nothing that I mentioned before for Crimson Assault. And this allows us to get multitasking. So hold as I do a lot of inventory management. We also have the Focus 2 socket with 2 Owl Talismans to get more cooldown recovery there. Unfortunately, my Focus with 2 slots is not +4. So I don't have the extra level, so I do have to... I show with the rare amulet after to show what it would look like at level 40. And here's one little trick. If you put something with support gems in it into Guild Stash, it will store those support gems on it and not take up extra space. So already there, level 40 with just Temporal Mastery and the Focus and the Talisman on the helmet. So not the Talisman, the Soul Core on the helmet for cooldown recovery. We're already down to 0.31, which is already looking a lot better. Here's where it gets a lot more difficult. I forgot to inspect the Fabled Stag there. I'm wondering why it's not working. So, no, or the Howling Primate. Now we can take it out. And we put in the Crimson Assault one and we grab the multitasking cluster. So this gives us some more cooldown recovery. One thing that you can use as Anoint as well is the extra qual. I forgot what it's called, but there's an extra qual node that gives, I think, 5% quality to all skill gems, which can be used to help with the reservation efficiency and the blink cooldown as well. I also changed out my Megalo to one with cooldown recovery. And as you can see, we're down to pretty good at 0.26 on the cooldown. I forgot where my extra cooldown recovery came from, but I had it... Oh, yes, you can get it on the helmet, the belt as well. If you use a Darkness Enthroned with helmet effect, then you can get you can put more cooldown recovery there as well. So that's where I had forgotten it in this video, I believe. And like I said, you can change the qual to something with cooldown recovery. The Anoint on the amulets. And you can, so you can manage stuff like that. One thing to note is that, and you can see that this is uncorrupted tempo. It's still, the blink is still really fast. So, you know, it's still not that bad for the purposes of running. Obviously, this is not the ideal gear set. If you are going to be running with an uncorrupted tempo, you would want more ES. And here I'm showing my nice ES focus. 449 ES with T1 everything. T1 spell damage, crit chance, cast speed, and the +3 all spells. So things like this. This is what you're going to be looking for with 2 Owl Talismans to get your ES up, because you can see the energy shield like dropped a lot because I don't have because I switched to just to show the demo the focus with 2 sockets that already had 2 Owl Talismans in it. And we are using a lot of increased effect of increased energy shield from focus on the jewels, which is because our focus gives us the most ES. That's one of the main core purposes there. And then when it comes to fixing your ATD stuff, you unspec desensitization. You unspec desensitization, and this is where you take those points, those 7 points from desensitization, and you spec them over back to spec into your ATD zone. Like I said, Chakra of Life, the crit nodes, the daze nodes. You can get all that stuff there. But you will have to do some point juggling to get more nodes, because it's more than 7 points to get all of that. So it's 5 points to get the 2 crit nodes. No, 6 points to get the 2 crit nodes, and then it's 7 points to get the 2 daze nodes. So you save 7 on the desensitization for unspecking desensitization, and then to get 4 nodes in the ATD, you would have to get 12 points total, so 5 more points from somewhere else that you would move over. But yeah. So here I'm showing it. You unspec the desensitization, and you spec into this zone over here, the daze nodes and the crit nodes. The daze nodes do actually add damage, which is why they're the priority for specking. So yeah, 6 points to get those. And then you need another 7 to get all the days nodes, or 6 to get all the days nodes. So I think it's 12 points total. So you need, like I said, 5 points from somewhere else to fix that. So there you have it. That's the more budget version of the build. There is, again, forthcoming is another cooldown recovery. There's distracting presence. Like there's the qual as well. There's the qual notable that you can get, and that is also very powerful. So we're going back to the original setup here. Or I think I'm going to show the Sekhemas tree. No, this is still the original setup. So one of the considerations is ingenuity. And ingenuity versus darkness and throne. Darkness and throne gets you more cast speed. Ingenuity gets you more damage and more resistances. So depending on what your cast time is, you're probably just better off, or sorry, your cooldown is, you're better off just using an ingenuity. And then just taking the extra damage, life, res, rarity, whatever it is that you have on your rings. These are not ideal rings. These were budget rings I picked up mostly to show in maps and just cover res. So yeah, I have too much cold res, not enough chaos res and fire res. So I have to everything is slotted with fire resistances in the on all the gear. So yeah, there is that to fix in my build for mapping, but you get the gist of it with the ingenuity. So especially if you're not running a 2.3 tempo, you have probably more than enough space to put an ingenuity instead of the darkness enthroned. So that is one consideration. We also have Mana Tempest. So Mana Tempest is an option for this build because it does work with life. If I remember, I believe it works with life. So there is that option as well. And we also have, yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we have the Convalescence as well. So here I have Hastening Barrier, 15% cast speed as long as I'm at full life. And we're trying to be full life a lot when we're doing Sekhemas. And then we're going to spec into our Sekhemas tree just to show what it looks like. For Sekhemas, again, if you're doing things casually, I do not recommend you unspec out of what you see here. And I do not recommend you do the speedrunning tree. And our good Bodega Shaman, who's making the build right now, loaned me the 1.98 tempo just for the video. Because my 1.97 is loaned out. Or I should say traded out for the time being. So yeah. 2000 ES with 1800 life is very, very comfy for Sekhemas. We have 100% trap damage reduction. So yeah, you can just blink through. Still relatively fast. I mean, look, 0.22 or whatever I had on the blink, 0.2 on blink is still very reasonable for Sekhemas. If you're doing phase runs, you definitely don't want to drop ES because you take one hit and you die if you do. So I very much recommend that the previous setup is what you'd use for Sekhemas farming. But if you want to speed run, this is the tree that I use. So. So again, I use the tech rods.
A forbidden technique.
And we use the metamorphosis.
Speak.
I must keep calculating.
Grab those nodes with the metamorphosis. Take out Arctic armor. Because we remember for speedrunning, it's all maneuvering. Where it's pure maneuvering and a little bit of luck. Don't get hit. And that's it. So remember, just don't get hit. Don't get hit forehead. And yeah, so, and you know, if you die, it happens in the speed run. It happens. You pick up and you move on to the next run. You know, it's going to be frustrating. You die to some random projectile thrown in some random direction on floor 4, and you just drop dead. So it's definitely happened. And enemies on floor 4, their AI, they start their attacks from way out of range. So they're not even going to be on your screen, and they start their projectile attacks, and so you might just happen to blink into a projectile hit and instantly die. Stuff like that happens. And that's where the maneuvering comes in. So again, I really do not recommend that you play this version of the tree, because you are much squishier, but you do go faster, which is the goal for a speed run. So I don't recommend you do this, but yeah. And here we're going to show what the cast speed looks like with Arcane Surge. It is very, very spicy. And we're using the Instant Leech, the Metamorphosis for Arcane Surge to be life regen, and Tech Rod so that, you know, we actually get life regen rate, or we get life regen back from casting. With the extra point, we could go Mysticism as well. And those are my cast speed rings. So again, no resistances, no ES. It's just full on cast speed, because you can get skill speed as a suffix line as well. So that's more of my setup. And we have 5.88 unbuffed. Keep in mind we also are using Stag Charm as well, so that can give us some skill speed on top. But overall, we can get to 6.71 with Arcane Surge. It is absolutely wild. So 6.71 blinks per second, assuming we have our Arcane Surge up. So, yep. We also have cast speed if we've crit recently, so again, that's part of it as well. So yeah. We can be fast as fuck. Can be fast as fuck on this. And there's the rite of passage with Stag. So all the vivid ones give you that skill speed. So yeah.
Not yet. I need more time.
So Wolf is significantly cheaper as a rite of passage, just as a heads up, but doesn't give you the gain as lightning, or the cat gives you the crit chance as a vivid. Wolf gives you like break armor, so you know it's generally a lot cheaper, but it's still a vivid one for that purpose. So yeah, the ATD, I don't know how much it is now, but when I was starting I dropped my own ATD. I dropped my own Cold Spirit ATD, and that's the one I'm using. It was very inexpensive. The Metamorphosis was about 5 divines. The Walker of the Wild was a few divines when I was making the build. Megalos it's whatever the Megalo market is, and the +3 blink is just ridiculous right now. So hopefully it goes down. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It will definitely feel a lot worse for the build if you do not have it. So do consider that before you start building, if you can afford all the pieces before. Because plus levels on Blink really do matter. And also, in this whole thing, I'm assuming that you're able to get like a +7 wand. Most people are probably only going to get a +6. Focus can hit +4 on the Sanctify. And Amulet can either get +1 on Corrupt or +4 on the Sanctify. So yeah, you could maybe just use a level 19 Spellslinger with 2 sockets and do that. That's probably a good start. And then you lose one of the supports. Keep in mind, considered casting does not actually help on Spellslinger. So, yep, do remember that. So you could just use a level 19 Spellslinger to start on more of a budget and craft yourself a decent wand, corrupt it to 3 socket, and there you go. With level 19 Spellslinger, I'm sure it's way cheaper. And there you have it. So from there, I hope you enjoyed. I will throw in some more clips of maps and pinnacles if you just want to watch and chill. Otherwise, let me know down in the comments if you have and if you plan on playing the build. Are there any variations you plan on doing? And yeah, if you had fun playing it. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you on the next video.
Yeah.